How's it rockin', Dween Nation? You're listening to the Dween Sports Podcast. We're about to get underway. But before you give us a listen, we'd love if you could like, comment, subscribe, and share. We are posting weekly sports content, and we want to build up the brand that is Dween Sports. Thank you all, and enjoy.
Welcome in, Dween Nation. This is your host, Justin Paez, alongside Genoa Agudelo, and we are here for starts and sits of Week 10 of the NFL season. We just did some rapid-fire game picks. We got some bold predictions on the way. We got some college football talk on the way. So all football you want to know about heading into this weekend, we got for you. As you know how starts and sits work, we got, quarterback star, running back star, wide receiver star, a sit, a kicker start. So we got a lot that we want to discuss. But before we do so, how you doing, Genoa?
Yo, Dween Nation. I'm very excited, Justin. I love starts and sit-ems there because, we like to break down the matchups there. And we've kind of been hitting here and there. Some weeks we hit, some weeks we don't. But I do think, Justin, something about this week, I feel like we are going to hit on pretty much all our players there. And I'm so excited to kind of talk about who we're starting this week. There's a lot of juicy matches all across the board. I mentioned last episode, there's going to be a ton of shootouts, I believe, this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Last week, looking at the schedule, not so much. I wasn't feeling shootouts. This weekend, I'm feeling shootouts. We have three actually primetime games that could all be shootouts there. Joe Burrow's kind of playing hot. Detroit Lions are playing hot. Obviously, Miami and Los Angeles kind of line up there with their receivers and, playmakers could end up being a shootout as well. So I'm excited to get down to it and kind of see, what Dween Nation kind of feels on our starts and sit-ems.
Yeah, man, I'm ready to dive into it. So, I mean, at my quarterback position this week, if you heard our game predictions, Genoa over here kind of spoiled my take already. But he said Brock Purdy, and that is my start of the week at quarterback. He gets to take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are 31st against quarterbacks this season. And coming into this week, obviously they lost Ayuk for the season, but you get a healthier Deebo. You get Javonte Jennings, who is hopefully going to return this week. Possibly. He's still limited and questionable, but hopefully he returns. And then obviously the long-awaited return that we believe is going to happen in Christian McCaffrey, and George Kittle obviously is there. So he's got all the weapons he needs in a matchup where I think there are going to be some points scored by Tampa Bay. I think they're going to be able to score and go back and forth. They're coming off the bye, so they're getting extra prep and extra rest. So they're ready to rock in this game. I think it's just perfect timing for Brock Purdy to step up. And he's currently the quarterback 10. I think he plays a top 5 game, though, this week.
Yeah, Justin, looking at Purdy there, I mentioned that this 49er team, they're going to need to kind of get things going. They're 4-4 currently, second in the NFC West. And their schedule, it gets very interesting, Justin. I mentioned last episode. They have to win this week in Tampa. And then they go home next week to face Seattle. They have games against the Packers, the Bills, the Bears, the Rams, Dolphins, Lions, and they end it against Arizona. So the schedule, fantasy-wise, is very juicy. Points could be scored all across the board in these matchups that I mentioned that the 49ers may have. However, for Brock Purdy specifically, he needs to get it going there. We're not sure what the snap count's going to be for Christian McCaffrey. We're not sure if we'll see much of Jordan Mason. It's really tough to tell. So the one thing that does remain stagnant there is Brock Purdy. And you know what? He has the targets there. He has Kittle, who's playing, great as of late.
Great.
Deebo, he's had some time to really rest up. He had a little bit of a pneumonia, kind of sick illness kind of issue. So he's had time to heal up. Thankfully, he's all better, and there's not anything with, a thigh injury, leg injury, not anything like that. It's just him battling an illness, and hopefully he's back to 100% there. And you mentioned Javonte Jennings, and he could be back there. And, I like Ricky Pearsall there. If by some crazy reason, they trade Deebo next year, or Ayuk is still on the team, but we don't see him play till like week 8 or 9 of next year. Ricky Pearsall can be the guy for San Francisco. They drafted him pretty high there, I believe in the first round. You could make the argument that he even had this incident in the offseason. He could have probably been on a hot streak right now at this moment. Maybe he scores 3 touchdowns in that game against the Rams that Javonte Jennings did. And so I like Purdy this week. And I mentioned, I think if you're playing daily fantasy, you definitely got to have Purdy there in that lineup. This Tampa Bay offense has been kind of scoring at a high pace as well. And, they kind of come off a difficult loss last week in Kansas City. So, Purdy in this offense, definitely going to need to be going at it. And I love Purdy this week. And in fact, I love Purdy more than my guy of the week, but I'm going to guess at my guy. My guy is Matt Stafford, Monday Night Football. And the 49ers and the Rams are kind of in the same boat there. They're fighting for that division. The Cardinals are kind of, might be running away with it, some say. But I do think that McVay, he's very experienced as a head coach, knows what it takes to finally have his team together. And we kind of talked about in our previous episodes on the waiver wires that Demarcus Robinson is on fire right now. And then you bring back Cooper Kupp, who had 100 yards last week. And then if Puka didn't get, kicked out in the game, he probably would have had 100 yards. Also Kyron Williams, this guy's a touchdown magnet. So, he might not have a rushing touchdown this game, but I do think he could have a receiving touchdown. Matt Stafford is on fire right now. He had a beautiful throw to win in overtime last week in Seattle. So I do think I just love this Rams team. In the offseason, I picked them to win this division sorely because they have Matt Stafford, McVay, plus Cooper and Puka Nacua. So I just love Matt Stafford actually this week to kind of go toe-to-toe with Tua and his receiving corps. I do want to mention that Miami's somewhat on fire. Jonnu Smith is kind of coming up to a tight end that we might be picking up here in the next few weeks. Obviously, Tyreek Hill, we're hoping he can come back with a good game. And my guy Jalen Waddle here, it's time. He had a touchdown last week, but he also had -4 receiving yards. So it's time for these two offenses to kind of go at it. And I do think this game could be a shootout on Monday night. There's no weather. You got to worry about no weather. They're playing in SoFi, so there's a roof over their heads. So I love Matthew Stafford as my starting quarterback of the week.
I like Stafford a lot too. You mentioned all the weapons. You couldn't ask for much better than that. And then you have a matchup where I think Miami's going to be scoring a lot. And yeah, I know you might look at, Stafford and his matchup, right? If you're on, on your waiver wire or something, you're on ESPN, you see that that the Dolphins are third against quarterbacks. That's a lot to read into. They were playing against like nobody's during this time, and their offense was really, really bad, so they weren't in any shootouts. They played Jacksonville in the first week when their offense was struggling. Then they got injured, and Buffalo was like killing them, so they didn't have to throw the ball. Seattle is okay, and then they played, Tennessee and New England. Those were never good hits, and then it was Anthony Richardson on the Colts. And any other game besides that, it's been pretty bananas, which are the last 2 weeks since Tua has returned. So I think you shouldn't worry about that number across from Matthew Stafford, and throw him in your lineup. It's a great matchup. So I like that there, and they're home under the bright lights. So I like that there. Moving to running back, I have Aaron Jones as my start of the week at running back. He has been one of the unluckiest touchdown scorers this season at the running back position. I believe he only has 3 total touchdowns, 2 on the ground. He's getting the looks. He had 21 carries last week, 19 the week before that. So he's getting the usage, right? He's getting the volume. Obviously, Cam Akers played a little bit in last week, but I don't worry about him too much. And then in a matchup where they're playing Jacksonville, and Jacksonville's really struggled on offense, I expect Minnesota to be ahead in this game and try to wear it out with Aaron Jones. And he's going to have a big game. I think this is one of those games. To me, Aaron Jones is one of those players that has like an Aaron Jones game. It usually goes against like the Cowboys where he has like 4 touchdowns. I think this, though, is one of those weeks against the Jaguars.
Yeah, Justin, I've lost 2 matchups the past 2 weeks because of Jacksonville's terrible rush offense. 2 weeks ago, Josh Jacobs shredded them, and I lost. Last week, Saquon Barkley had the game of games, the play of plays this year. And, I don't think this weekend is much different. So I do love the Aaron Jones pick there. He's been a little underwhelming. I don't think he had too much of a great game there on Sunday Night Football against the Colts this past week. I think he only had 64 rushing yards. The week before, he only had 58 rushing yards on that Thursday night game against the Rams. So I think this is definitely an Aaron Jones bounce back game. So I definitely love it a lot. And so yeah, great pick there. For my running back of the week, it's Breece Hall. And it's another running back that's been kind of quiet this year. With the addition of Davante Adams, I do think that Aaron Rodgers is trying to get the band kind of back together. He's trying to relive the old glory days at Green Bay, and we kind of saw it last week with the Jets. And I do think that Breece Hall has been kind of forgotten, and a lot of defenses have kind of forgotten on what that is. With the Cardinals, they're pretty average there as a rushing defense. But you can't deny the physicality of Breece Hall there. And he's been very quiet there, Justin. I mean, like I mentioned, he didn't have too much of a great game there, but people don't really talk about how underrated Breece Hall is from catching the ball out of the backfield there. That's really going to help out in a game where Rodgers could pretty much go off. But he does get all the goal line carries there. I know kind of in the beginning of the season, people were kind of worried about, Braylon Allen, but he's kind of fallen off the graces of fantasy football as well. And Breece Hall, he only has 3 touchdowns on the year. So I do think that he has a great game this week. Kind of gets, this Jets honestly offense could really score a ton of points this week. I'm really confident because we're not really sure what Arizona team we're going to get. Whether they're going to be good defensively or they're going to be good offensively. They're probably one of the more inconsistent teams in the league. So, it's kind of a little pattern. They won in 2 weeks in a row. They beat Miami 2 weeks ago, and then they dominate Chicago. So I do think this is like one of the games where they struggle. Kind of like early in the year, they dominate the Rams, and a few weeks later, Jaden Daniels and the Commanders comes in and shreds them. And with Breece Hall, he's had 74 yards last week, 80 yards the week before. And in that matchup in Pittsburgh on Sunday Night Football, he only had 38. So it's been a couple weeks since he's had a big time game. I think he's due. And you know what? I like him there against Arizona.
I think he's a very solid play. I think it's been interesting to see the Cardinals play some good defense last week, limiting Swift, who had been on a tear before that. So that's the only concern there. But Hall is too good, man. He's better than Swift, obviously. And even last week against a really good Texans rush defense, he still had 5 yards a carry. So I think that he's in line. I agree, he's due. I think he is due. I don't know if it's due to the system that he hasn't been involved as much as we would expect him to, but maybe this week he finally gets on that. For me at the wide receiver position, I have Darnell Mooney. The Falcons are going into New Orleans, who have struggled a lot this season on defense. Yeah, and they just went out and they traded away Marshawn Lattimore, their star cornerback, to the Washington Commanders. So that was a big trade at the deadline. But coming into this week, we're not sure Drake London's going to play. He's a limited participant this week thus far. So with or without Drake London, though, I think Darnell Mooney has kind of been, you could argue, the best receiver in this offense and fantasy. So I think he's in for a big game. I think Atlanta's going to want to show out in this division bout, this matchup. And so I think Darnell, who is, I don't even know if he's ranked in the top 20 at wide receiver, he's been balling this year. And to me, is a set it and forget it start.
Yeah, Justin, I really do like Darnell Mooney this week. You mentioned they did trade Marshawn Lattimore there. So even if Drake London were to play, it still works out for Mooney, in my opinion. And this Saints offense, or the Saints team overall, is going downhill. We're not sure what to expect out of this new coaching staff after the firing of Dennis Allen, but it doesn't matter. The Falcons are going for blood. They want to win this game. They want to move closer to clinching this division and winning this division. Raheem Morris has done a great job really developing this offense. I had my questions in the first couple weeks of the season, but Kirk Cousins is finding his stride there, doing everything he can to win football games for this Falcons team. I love Mooney there, and he is a player that's going to be drafted in next year's leagues. This is like one of the dark horse kind of, one of the misses that I've had, Justin. I had like Curtis Samuel being like a sneaky player this year, and I think I should have thought about it and put Darnell Mooney. And I like Mooney a lot this year. He's back in the fantasy graces. A couple years ago, he was really good at Chicago, so not surprised to see him dominating in Atlanta. Do think he has a great game this week. For me, it's Deebo Samuel, and it kind of tacks on what I mentioned earlier on Purdy. There's also a chance that with the 49ers, I don't know how they're going to implement this Christian McCaffrey snap count. But Deebo, he should be healthy, ready to go. I know he had an illness a few weeks ago. And I do think he's going to be ready to go against this, Tampa Bay kind of defense. And I really like this matchup. I think this is one of the shootouts of the week. San Francisco, every week going to the end of the season, they're kind of fighting for their lives there. They've been so on and off there. Kind of been the teams that I predicted the right to kind of been struggling. And Deebo Samuel, he's going to take off here. Ricky Pearsall is going to be implementing snaps. Juwan Jennings should be back from injury. Kittle should be there, but I think Deebo is going to be the guy to kind of shred Tampa Bay this week, and it's going to help Purdy kind of become one of the better finishing quarterbacks of this week. So I like Purdy there. He could possibly get a rushing touchdown as well. Maybe the 49ers want to trick the defense. A lot of the defense coordinators kind of looking into stopping McCaffrey or maybe Jordan Mason, but I like Deebo to possibly have a rushing touchdown as well. So yeah, give me some Deebo Samuel this weekend in Tampa Bay. Definitely, if he's healthy, good to go. I love his matchup.
Yeah, no, as you mentioned, he has a great matchup against the Buccaneers this week. And really what I get down to, which I think Deebo might be one of the best trade for candidates right now, is the last time we really saw Deebo without Ayuk for a long period of time was when Deebo was when Ayuk hadn't been drafted and Deebo was the wide receiver 2 in fantasy football. So I think that this is he might have been drafted, but it was when Deebo kind of stepped up and was the main guy. I think Ayuk last year was kind of became that number 1 wide receiver, but Deebo now can step into his role and be the guy that we know him as. So I really like that, and I had Purdy as my start of the week. That kind of transitions into having Deebo as well as a really good play. Moving to the sits of the week, the downside of players this week, I have Bucky Irving of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Looking at him, obviously he's fighting this toe injury, but Todd Bowles said the injury shouldn't plague him. Like he won't be missing games, but he's going to this injury should linger through the rest of the season, which is pretty sour news. He's going to be playing kind of at 60% of what he really could be. So that already is a hindrance. And if you look at his snap count last week, 35% of snaps compared to his normal 45 to 60 area. So he already is dropping in snap share. Rachaad White's becoming part of the main back, running back in the offense as he was last year a little bit more. But for some reason, Bucky Irving is still projected higher in points this week, and I just don't see that translating. I think Rachaad White's re-solidifying himself as the RB1 there, and that allows me to say Bucky Irving is not a start this.
Yeah, Justin, with Bucky Irving, I don't think he's going to be kind of implementing this offense going forward. Baker Mayfield has been able to elevate this offense now that Chris Godwin's out for the year and Mike Evans going to miss the next couple games. They're looking to other people. Kate Otten, that's why he's been kind of the hot hand there. Maybe guys like Jace McMillan and even Rachaad White. He is kind of taking his backfield back from last year. And Bucky Irving's been kind of pushed to the side, and we don't think he'll do much against San Francisco, which is somewhat of a tough rushing defense. And so definitely Bucky Irving is a guy that probably could be hitting the waivers here in the next couple of weeks, kind of being there in Dumpsville. It's for me, it's a guy that has kind of been on this sits of the week throughout the season. It's Javonte Williams. I don't like his matchup there in Kansas City. He's been struggling. I mean, he only has good games against pretty sorry teams like the Saints a few weeks ago. And it's just not working out there. I like kind of what I've seen the last couple of weeks where they kind of start throwing in Audric Estime, I think his name is.
Yeah.
And we kind of talked about him. I remember talking about him in the draft, back in, April and May, kind of what he could be. And I think that might be the back of the future, not even Jaleel McLaughlin, not even him. And I do think that Javonte, it just does not fit on this Broncos offense. I hope to see him on another team in the future. But in Denver, it just doesn't work out. And I do feel like, this is going to be a real weird game for the Broncos. But I'm just not confident in Javonte Williams as I did going into the year. And I'm sorry, but I might have to sit him this week.
No, I mean, I agree completely. It's tough to go against Javonte. As Dwayne Nation knows, he was kind of my guy. I believed in one of the major misses I've had this season and prior to this season. But as you mentioned, the Chiefs are the number 1 defense against running back. So that already sends me off the board. And over the last 4 weeks, Javonte's snap share has decreased consecutively in each week. So he is going downward and downward. And plus a tough matchup. I don't see it either. He can't be started. And we've seen, Estime be more included. Jaleel McLaughlin always has like a little bit of a role. So it's weird, and it's kind of weird. I feel like sometimes Javonte's used more, and then the next week he's not. Like obviously that Saints game, it was all Javonte, and then I remember being super excited because he played Carolina the next week. Then he wasn't used as much, and he was playing worse. So I don't know what changed, but it seems like it's too risky to pick. So I agree with you there. But yeah, Dwayne Nation, those are our sits of the week. And as we always finish off our starts and sits episode with our kickers of the week, and I got Cam Dicker from the Los Angeles Chargers. They're home against the Titans on Sunday. I just think, the Chargers offense has been rolling, especially last week against Cleveland on the road. Now they get a home matchup against Tennessee, which is not the best defense, but not the worst defense. So I think they can kind of get in that field goal area a lot.
Yeah, I love Cam Dicker there. My fellow Longhorn definitely has been one of the more underrated kickers in this league. Definitely this Chargers offense does get a little stale at some points, but I do like them to move the ball, get a couple field goals there, and I like Dicker. He has great range there, a strong leg there. He's going to be a kicker that we're going to be drafting in the future, kind of in that Justin Tucker, Brandon Aubrey kind of range. Still one of the younger kickers in the league, so definitely like that. For me, it's going to be Tyler Bass there. And this matchup in Indianapolis could get tricky for this Bills offense, but I do think that Josh Allen's going to be able to move the football. Tyler Bass is going to kick some field goals because I do think that the Colts are solid enough defensively to kind of put some stops on Josh Allen's drives. But nonetheless, Josh Allen will still be able to get over the 50. So Tyler Bass will get some extra points there, and I do think he'll get some field goals there out of 45 and 50. So I like Tyler Bass this week. Justin, I like to pick these kickers that never have to play out in outdoor stadiums. In Indianapolis, they don't really have a roof that opens. It's really like on the sides, windows that they have there at Lucas Oil Stadium. And so I like Tyler Bass. To, no weather's really going to affect them, as well as Cam Dicker. So definitely like both of these kickers for this week.
Yeah, Tyler Bass is a good play to have. He's not owned in a lot of leagues, and the fact that he's in a dome and he's coming off a big, game-winning field goal week, probably riding hot. So I like that there. But yeah, Dwayne Nation, that's our starts and sits episode for week 10. Stay tuned for everything else that we got. And as always, like, comment, subscribe, and share so we can keep building up Dwayne Nation and Dwayne Sports. But thank you guys who are listening. And Jano, send us out.
Yeah, Dwayne Nation, this was our starts and sits of the week. If you guys need more help, don't hesitate to leave a comment, and on our TikToks, on our YouTube for advice. We're always there to answer for you guys. So thanks for watching. We love you guys, and as always, peace.